Welcome to the Carousel of Happiness podcast. I'm your host, Allie Wagner. On last week's episode, you heard about a feature of the carousel called the Somewhere Else wall. A stuccoed wall with animals moving in and out of the wall, designed to represent a portal between those of us who are here and those of us who are somewhere else. Last week, I also shared a personal story with you about my own connection to somewhere else. Specifically, how I've been receiving messages from my mother in spirit. On today's episode, you'll hear my conversation with author, speaker, and evidential medium Travis Holp. He and I sat down at the Awkwardly Zen 1111 Metaphysical Fair in Lakewood to talk about mediumship, how we can connect with our loved ones on the other side, signs and synchronicities, and what death can teach us about life. As I shared in last week's episode, the day before I was scheduled to interview Travis, I lost my voice. I was able to eke out some audible questions, but I must admit, the audio for this episode is not great. Thank you in advance for your compassion. Because my conversation with Travis was so juicy, I wanted to keep it in its entirety. I'll pick up the threads of my personal story on next week's episode. In the meantime, let us begin with today's story. My interview with Travis was part of the Awkwardly Zen Metaphysical Fair on November 8th and 9th. Awkwardly Zen is an organization that was created by Netherlands native Arrie Honeyford as a safe space for people to explore and question spirituality in a community setting. Arrie started Awkwardly Zen as a free meetup group, and it has since grown to welcome over 33,000 members, Travis being one of them. They host in-person events like the Metaphysical Fair and also online events to support those as they're navigating, albeit maybe awkwardly, their spiritual path. For 2 days in November, they welcomed over 40 readers, healers, and energy workers to a venue in Lakewood. When I arrived, there were little tables set out all over the place where mediums and Reiki masters and astrologers and healers of all kinds set up shop. Participants could set up appointments to have their palms read or their irises read. It was truly fascinating to see how different people had found their unique connection to somewhere else and were sharing it with others. As the readings were taking place, Travis and I sat down to have this conversation I'll share with you in a moment. As you know, I am a big fan of his work, specifically how he brings such a joyful and uplifting approach to mediumship. He does live mediumship demonstrations in unusual places like comedy clubs, where it feels like he's able to bridge the gap between here and somewhere else in his unique, lighthearted, fun, and approachable way. I hope you enjoy my conversation with author, speaker, and evidential medium Travis Holp.
Thank you so much for having me, Allie. I'm honored to have this conversation and to be with you this afternoon at this really cool metaphysical fair.
Yes, and first and foremost, completely forgot, big shout out to Arrie Honeyford for creating this event, and not only creating this event, but creating this amazing spiritual community where conversations like this can exist.
Yes, absolutely.
It's amazing.
Yeah, it's important, I think, as somebody who was trying to find my own way in the metaphysical space, Awkwardly Zen, that I write about in the book as well, and Arrie gets a mention in there too. It was an important space for me as kind of coming out as this medium and finding safety and finding community. It's the second time I came out. I came out first as a gay man, and for gay people coming out, we had gay bars. So for mediums coming out, it's like we got crystal shops, and amazing spiritual community. So it's such an honor to be a part of something so magical.
Yes. All right. First things first, let's get everybody on the same page. What is a medium? How is it different than a psychic? And specifically, you're an evidential medium. What does that mean?
That's such a great question. So a medium, so there's this saying that all mediums are psychic, but not all psychics are mediums. A medium is somebody who connects with energy that is not in a physical body or an incarnate spirit, or disincarnate spirit, sorry. A psychic is somebody who connects with energy that is existing in a body. So person to person, to animals, the energy of somebody that's in a vessel. An evidential medium is just a fancy way of describing the type of mediumship that I do. So I work with the souls of the departed that once had a physical body. And so when I'm connecting, or when I'm connecting mediumistically, or I'm doing readings, I tend to stay away from big, broad statements like there's a woman here and she says she loves you, but more so the souls of the departed will share with me who they were. They'll walk me through their departure. They'll share with me signs or symbols that are relative to the person that I'm connecting with. They'll also share with me things that are happening here in the physical world, because my job as a medium, believe it or not, is not to prove that what I do is real. My job as a medium is to provide validation and evidence that there is continuation of consciousness beyond this physical experience.
And what's the value of knowing that there's continuation of life past this experience, do you think?
This reminds me of a couple of weeks ago. There was a good friend of mine who, somebody that he was close to and somebody that I knew as well had passed. And it was a tragic, sudden passing. We didn't really see it coming. And, my friend was really distraught. And we're sitting and we're chatting, and he looks at me and he goes, Travis, before you and I met, I don't know if I believed in any of this. But seeing you work and seeing how you deliver messages and seeing the evidence that comes through from the other side, because it's not me, I'm just the receiver, I'm just sharing, has given me hope that there is something beyond this life. And I think we're in a time in history right now where we're all looking for a little hope. We're looking for reassurance that it does get better. But, my work as a medium has really given me such a deep appreciation for life. You would think that I would be so attached to death or so just consumed by it. But doing work as a medium has really just affirmed for me how precious life truly is. And so I think when we understand that there is more than just this physical experience, it makes us a little softer, a little kinder, a little bit more gentle, which I think the world needs right now.
Amen. So what was your path to mediumship? How did you come to this work?
That's a great question. So when I was growing up, I always knew I had this connection. I just didn't know what it was until I was a little bit more further down my journey and further down my path to where I could kind of name it and identify what was going on or identify what I was experiencing. So, there wasn't like one specific moment. It was really, I came to this place in my life where I was getting sober. I really was just unhappy with my life, and I wanted to feel deeper connection. And so I started meditating. I started, connecting again like I did when I was a kid. But to do it professionally, it's the thing that really inspired me to begin pursuing mediumship as a job as well. My mom, when her mother was departing this earth, they were estranged. And my mom went to go to the hospital to try to say goodbye to her mom before she was passing. That's my Nan. My Nan was unconscious. She was in a coma. And my mom's siblings didn't allow her to say goodbye. They blocked her from being able to say goodbye to her own mother before she departed. And so as somebody who has seen the pain that can cause and the burden of guilt that a person will carry from not being able to say goodbye to their loved ones, I can't give that freedom from that burden to my mother, but I can give it to other people. And so for me, that has become the biggest gift of doing this work, is sharing that continuation of life, but also helping people find relief from their grief.
So do you think that when somebody comes to see you, do you notice some common themes? Who comes to see a medium? Is it someone who has had somebody depart and there is an estrangement? Who comes to see you?
Here's the great thing about, mediumship is that it's not necessarily just a tool for connecting to our departed loved ones. Mediums can also connect to spirit guides and angel energy as well. And like I said, all mediums are a little psychic. So, I'll sometimes get people who are like, I don't really have a departed loved one that I want to talk to, but I really want to work out my relationship and my energy around abundance or my love life. And so we can also do that work as well. But mostly the people that come to see me, they are seekers and they are looking for that continuation of life beyond this physical experience and getting that reassurance that their loved ones are okay. The number one question I get asked is my loved one at peace? I've never had a soul go, God, it's really hot down here. So, so I would say, the answer to that always is yes. But I think when we're having that experience of connecting with our loved ones and you're hearing information from someone who doesn't know you, who has no idea who you are, that's able to validate that your loved one is present, I think it makes a huge impact.
So how do you work? If somebody were to sit down right here and say, here I am, this problem, or how do you receive messages? How does that work? Does it depend on whoever's in front of you?
Yeah.
Does it depend on the session? How does it work?
It just depends, but mostly, I see, I hear, and I feel. And so when I'm working mediumistically, like I said, the soul will give me things like names, who they were, how they passed. They'll walk me through their departure, so I'll feel in my body what was going on with the physical body prior to them leaving their human vessel. And they'll kind of show me things like flashcards or symbols or imagery. And so, and my signs and symbols can mean a couple of different things. So, for example, if I'm reading for someone and I've got a mom that's departed or a dad that's departed or a friend or whatever the relationship is, and they show me rings, I know that there's either a connection to a ring or somebody got married or engaged after the departure. And so me as a medium, it's not, even though it's called a reading, it's my job to deliver the mail, not to read it. And so I'll just share, hey, this is what your loved one is showing me. How do you understand this? And it's really kind of interesting, the things that will come through. I was doing an event in Florida. I do a lot of live events, and I'm working with this woman. I'm sharing messages, and I'm like, and your loved one keeps showing me Three Musketeers, like the candy bar. And I was like, I know that sounds so like broad and out there. I'm like, and I'm not understanding. I was like, but how do you connect with Three Musketeers candy bars? She pulls one out of her purse and she goes, I'm diabetic, and my husband threw this in my bag before I left the house. And I love when that happens, because again, it's those things that like, it's too specific to be a random coincidence. It's something that is meaningful and impactful to the person that I'm reading for, and just shares the continuation of life after life.
Well, and it sounds like, too, when you're getting such specific images that you yourself are not interpreting, you're relaying directly to somebody, because those have meaning for them. Had you got all up in it and meant candy, you need to cut back your sugar. If you had added a layer of your interpretation, it wouldn't have resonated as much, sounds like.
Which I've done. I've done that where I have tried to insert my interpretation into things, and I will always get it kind of wrong if I try to overinterpret the message. There's certain things that I understand and that I can interpret, but then there's some things, there was a woman I was working with, her husband had departed, and he kept showing me all these hot dogs. And I was like, your husband keeps showing me all these hot dogs. Did he love hot dogs? And that's me interpreting the message. And she goes, no, he hated them. And I was like, oh, darn it.
Oops.
But then she goes, we owned hot dog carts.
Interesting, which probably explains why he didn't like hot dogs.
Right. And so, so there'll be moments like that. So I try to keep, as if it's something I don't understand or I don't know, then I won't try to give it specificity. I'll just let it kind of breathe. But
well, it's interesting because my mom has departed, and I will receive messages from her regularly.
Yeah.
And her only sister came to visit a couple of months ago, and they were estranged when my mother passed. And my aunt knew of this sort of, budding mediumship within me, and she asked me for a reading. And I was like, well, I don't know how this is going to go, but we'll give it a shot. And so I sat down, and the first image that I got was this big, huge wooden baby cradle. And I didn't tell her. I was like, well, that's obviously not my mom. I don't know what it is. And later, after the fact, I told her about this, and it was my great-grandfather who built that baby carriage, or the baby cradle.
Yeah.
I had never met him. He died before I was born, and the tears that streamed down her face because he had made it for her, and she had given it to her sons, and their sons were using it for their children.
Wow.
And I don't have children, so I don't pay attention to any of the baby stuff. And sure enough, that was my great-grandfather. And so had I not shared that message because I thought it was silly, she wouldn't have had that opportunity. And so it sounds like you get a lot of messages like that related to Three Musketeers and hot dogs.
Well, there will be things sometimes, a lot of food things, right? I must be ready for lunch if I'm using the food examples. No, but the thing is, though, is that there will be pieces of information that I'll get that I'll think, oh, that's too broad or that's too whatever, and I dismiss it. And I think that's a very natural human thing to be like, there's no way this could fit. But then I share it, and then it does. So there was a person I was doing a live event. And here's what I think is so fun about the universe. We all get signs and symbols from our loved ones, from our guides. And so sometimes if I deliver a certain symbol, I'll see it immediately after an event or a reading. And so the other night I was doing a live event and I'm reading for this gentleman and I see angel wings. And it's like, obviously their loved one is departed. Like, angel wings, come on, but I have to deliver it because I receive it. They won't let me move on to other things until I deliver.
Bossy on the other side, they are.
Yeah, because I'm working for them.
Sure.
And so I say to the guy, listen, I think it was his brother that was departed. I was like, your brother keeps showing me angel wings. And I was like, I know that he's departed. I know that angel wings might be and sure enough, there was a very specific connection for them with angel wings. Somebody had a tattoo with them, and it was a big thing. But then I leave the event, and as I'm leaving, I'm walking by this store. This was in a comedy club in the middle of a mall. And I was going out from a different exit than I had come in. And I'm walking by this store. It's this big tchotchke store. I love a tchotchke. I love a knick-knack, something, especially if it's just tacky and gaudy. I love it so much. There were angel wings right on the wall of this shop.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
So speaking of signs and symbols, you just mentioned we can all see them. We all have access to them. I have a friend who has departed. Her car, they don't make it anymore. And every time I see that car, I know that it's her.
Yeah.
So what advice would you give to someone who is looking to connect with folks on the other side? Do they need to come to an experienced medium? Can they start to connect with their loved ones on the other side, or their spirit guides, or their angels? What's your advice for them?
This is a terrible business model, but you actually don't need to see a medium to connect to your departed loved ones. We all have the ability to connect to our own loved ones. Now, I say that, though, because sometimes we need the validation, right? I still see a therapist. I know half the stuff he's got to tell me, but sometimes we just need that other person, right? I still get readings because I'm human. I still want validation. But with signs and symbols, whether it be from our loved ones, our spirit guides, we just have to be open to how it comes. So, for example, just today, I am pulling into the area that we're in, and I'm asking my guides, I'm like, I want to see a purple horse. So I was like, because I like giving them like the crazy stuff at this point. I'm like, yeah, butterflies are great. I love butterflies. I see them everywhere. I love an angel number, like a 777, a 444. See those all the time. I need to start asking for Powerball numbers, but I digress. And so I pull into this area that we're in, and there is a horse statue right out front and a gentleman in a purple hoodie standing right next to it.
There you go.
And it was like right before I turned the corner. That was like purple horse. And I turned the corner and it's right there. Now, if somebody was a little bit closed off to how it came, they may not connect that.
Yeah, they wouldn't count it.
I'm a little open. Yeah, I'm like, okay, gentleman in purple right next to a horse. I'll take it. That's a purple horse to me. I think we just have to be open. I think there's that, that left side of our brain that immediately discounts or discredits a sign. And all we have to do is when we receive the signs, just say thank you. And just ask for something. We just have to ask.
Isn't that crazy? I wish all we have to do is ask.
Ask and it is given, which is a phrase used by spiritual teacher Abraham Hicks.
Love it.
But it's true. There's this conversation around, is there a veil? Is the veil thin? Is there certain times of year where the veil is thin? There is no veil. The veil is simply just our own preconceived notion that we can't connect.
Interesting.
Our only job is to stop doing the thing that we're doing that prevents us from connecting. That's the veil. The veil is an illusion.
Wow. So one of the things that has struck me about Scott and his work is his ability to connect to his intuition. He's done all sorts of crazy things over the course of creating this beautiful work of art that nobody understood, but he just did because he felt connected to that deeper sense of knowing. So what is your advice to folks who do want to connect to that deeper sense of knowing? In my opinion, there is so much information out there. Yeah. Most of it is garbage and most of it doesn't apply to us, right? It doesn't apply to us. How do we tap into that internal GPS, that internal Google that's going to give us the right answer for us?
Stop asking other people what you should do.
There we go. Amen.
For me, I can get in my head a lot, and I know this about myself, when I'm kind of like stuck or I need to make an important decision, I will outsource approval.
Sure.
Which is something I'm as a human is working on.
Done it my whole life.
I love a reading. I love a therapy session. I love it for validation of where I am, but not necessarily what do I need to do. The truth is we have the answers. But if we become so reliant on other people to give us our answers, it's always going to steer us in the wrong direction for us. Because, and I think most advice is very well-intentioned, but people are answering from their perspective. They're answering from their experience. I remember the day that I told my friends and family that I was going to pursue mediumship full-time and that this is what I was going to do. My mom's first question was what's the 401k like? What's the healthcare like? And I'm like, and which is funny because both of my parents were entrepreneurs. They owned businesses when I was growing up. And so I'm like, what an entrepreneur life is like. What do you mean? But, the people that I love and that I think had really great intentions for me did not think that this is where my life was going to be. And I didn't see this coming either, but I just trusted it. And I think when we trust ourselves and we just trust the path that we're on, the universe will meet us there and open doors for us. I know that to be true.
Yeah. So which one was harder, coming out as gay or coming out as a medium?
Well, I think they both had their sets of contrast. Ultimately, they share the same theme of allowing myself to be seen and be seen fully, and that's still something that, because I think one of the biggest misconceptions about being in the spiritual space and living my life in this way is that, I have it all figured out and I'm immune from lessons, and that could not be further from the truth. For me, my journey has always been a journey of allowing myself to show up and be seen and allow myself to be full and to pour myself into what I'm doing. And for me and my journey, they both echo the same kind of thing, feeling safe to be myself and allowing that to shine through. And when I do that, miracles happen. When I don't do that, I get tired. I feel constricted. I burn myself out. I'm hustling for approval. I think the thing that my spiritual beliefs has given me, the gift that it's given me, is to know when that's happening, and then I know what to fall back on.
So we've been talking about creativity. You have something to celebrate this week. Your first book is out. Tell us about the book.
Yeah, so the book is called Are You There, Spirit? It's Me, Travis.
Love the title, by the way.
Thank you. It is a nod to Judy Blume.
Loved that book.
The thing is I wrote the whole book myself. I did not choose the title. My publisher chose the title.
Interesting.
They didn't like my titles.
What was your title?
One was like Meeting in the Middle, and the other one was like, I don't know. They weren't great titles.
Okay.
I didn't love them either. I wasn't sold on them.
Titling is hard.
It is tough, right? But it's hard to kind of quantify the energy of what you're doing sometimes. But what I thought was so cool with the title of the book was that when they proposed it, I was like, oh my gosh, this makes so much sense, because my very first book that got me into reading was Super Fudge by Judy Blume.
Love it.
And you typically get read that in like the 3rd or 4th grade.
Love
and
it.
that was like the book that I'd like begged my parents. I was like, take me to the bookstore. I want to get this book. And then I fell in love with the Goosebumps series and Animorphs, and I'm telling my age now, but that book got me into reading. And so it just felt like a really nice, appreciative nod to the author who started me on my reading journey and my love of books and bookstores. And so the book follows my journey as a medium. It also links in client stories. There's a lot of conversation in the book around synchronicity, and there's a lot of conversation around how we can connect, how we can allow ourselves to be in the presence of that energy of spirit. And so there are some exercises in the book as well. It's not an instructional book necessarily, but there are some exercises at the end of the book that talks about like manifestation and conscious creation and how to connect to the spirit world for our own healing as well. It wasn't meant to be a memoir style, but that's what it ended up being. Well, I guess it was meant to be that.
Well, and that was going to be my next question. How did you grow over the course of writing a book? Because writing a book is comparable to having a baby or these big sort of momentous occasions. How did you change from start to finish?
Yeah, I went into that book not really kind of knowing. It was so funny because I wrote the first chapter. I wrote the proposal. My book agent and we shopped the book. The publisher loved what we had. And so I kind of built the book off of that. But when I started it, I didn't really know what I wanted the book to be. And so I wrote like chapters, or I wrote sections, and I kind of like piecemealed some things. I had like a Frankenstein of a book kind of thing. I had like an arm over here, a leg over here, an eyeball over here. And when my dad was diagnosed with cancer earlier this year, something about that just opened me up, and all of this, like just these stories and how I wanted to tie this book together and what I wanted to share just kind of started flooding through. And thankfully, my dad is in great shape now. He's, cancer-free. And the book ended up being something to help me heal something within me. Like, I think sometimes we write things. I have friends that are authors. They talk about writing their books and how it ripped things open for them. Mine did the opposite.
Interesting.
Mine closed things up for me.
And provided closure.
Yeah. It was like the closure for certain things. It was like I got that perspective. There's a chapter in the book. So all of the book chapters are named after some of my favorite songs. And I love music. And one of the chapters in the book, I talk a lot about my relationship with my mom and how difficult it was for me coming out and the journey that we went on together. One of the chapters in the book, I go through EMDR, which if someone's listening and isn't familiar with that, that's a type of trauma therapy that helps you to reprogram trauma. And you do it through rapid eye movement and recalling the memory. And there's a moment in the book where I'm talking about my relationship with my mom and how difficult that was, and my mom abandoning me at a very important time in my life, and then healing from that while still working through our relationship. And I had mentioned earlier about my mom being estranged from her mom. And in writing that book, I was able to see my mom abandoned me, but her mom also abandoned her. And we had that in common. And I was able to write that and find this like deep sense of peace and forgiveness that I don't know if I would have had if I didn't get to write that.
Well, and there's something about getting yourself to the page and trying to find the specific word that feels true now about a particular situation or scenario that can lead you to those moments of catharsis, because you realize once you find that word, you connect that dot that, oh wait, this was a chain of pain that I am choosing to end.
And it was so interesting because I could sometimes still feel some of the anger or the pain or the grief around that. And then it was like the second that I finished the book and I wrapped it up, it was just, there's this song from Taylor Swift called The Manuscript. And that song, I'm a huge Swiftie, that song just talks about wrapping things up, like wrapping up your story and realizing like this story doesn't belong to me anymore. And that's really what it felt like. It was like this story, it's, you know, I've integrated the parts from this that I needed, but the rest of this isn't mine.
And through the act of sitting down at the page, you were able to come to that conclusion in a way that you might not otherwise have.
Yeah, exactly.
So you have amazing stories in this book. Is there a particular client story that shifted your perspective in a way that felt really, I'm sure they're all meaningful, but is there one that you can single out that you could share with us?
So this book takes place over the course of roughly 4.5 years of my life, and it follows my growth as a medium and as a person. I talk about the first time I did mediumship for a woman who lost her child to suicide. And I didn't realize the impact of this work until I channeled her son. And I was able to bring through verifiable evidence of who he was, their relationship, his departure, signs and symbols that he was sending her. I didn't realize the depth of what I do until I did that reading. And then it was kind of like, okay, this is helping people heal. And so that story is important for me because I think, you know, going into this, it was like, oh yeah, we're going to talk about people's love lives and we're going to, you know, talk about jobs and careers and manifestation and, you know, and I took it serious. It's not that I didn't. I very much have deep reverence for the work. It was very humbling. I'm not a humble person. Humility is like not a virtue that I have ever strived to. But I do find that moment really humbled me and made me realize why this work or how this work can be beneficial for people who do align to it. I don't think everybody has to believe in it. I don't think it's for everybody. But for the people who do find resonance with working with a medium or a spiritual healer or a guide or a psychic or whatever it is, this work can help you. And I think this book shares not only how it's helped other people, but myself as well.
Yeah. Well, and it sounds like, too, you said earlier that you deliver the mail, you don't read it. And there's got to be something about that act of being the bridge that does humble you a little bit.
Can I tell you something about that word?
Yes.
I just got so excited and you just saw me shift in my chair. So, you know, my name is Travis. I never looked up my name and what it meant. It was my mom told me that she called me Travis because when she was pregnant with me, she was watching Old Yeller, and I was like, "Oh, cool! The kid that shoots his dog. Great, Mom. Thanks. This is such a sweet story." And when I was on a plane a couple weeks ago, and I was bored. And I was like, what, you know, because I'm on planes a lot and there's only so many movies you can watch. And so I was like, I know my last name means to have helped. I knew that.
Interesting.
I didn't know what my first name meant. I look up my first name. My first name means somebody who stands at a bridge or a crossing.
I just got chills.
Isn't that crazy?
Wow.
And I texted my mom and I was like, Mom, did you know this? And she goes, no, I just really loved Old Yeller. And I was like, of course you did, Mom. But yeah, and so my name means somebody who stands at a bridge or a crossing, my last name means to have helped. So I help the people that are standing at those crossings.
Oh my gosh.
And that's what I do.
Wow. So you have, and this is an official technical count, a bazillion followers on social media.
Yep, that's a very technical number.
So technical. And I think largely when that happens, it's because of the authenticity of the person expressing. I don't think that people who have split energy in the way that they present themselves get that many followers, because we can feel it. We might not know why, but we just don't want to go anywhere near that person.
That's an interesting perspective. I love that.
Yeah. So talk to me about authenticity, the role that it plays in your life, your own personal journey with authenticity. How do you help your clients find that sense of authenticity? Because I think there's a lot of stuff out in the world, and some of it feels like cotton candy. There's no nutritional value to it. There's no depth to it.
Yeah.
And I think you are an anomaly. I think that the way that you show up in the world is very authentic. Might not be for everyone, and nobody is.
Thanks.
But I think that there's something that we can learn from you and your authentic expression.
I really appreciate that observation. I take that to my heart. I try to be more genuine than authentic.
Okay.
For me, I think I'm still figuring out parts of who I am. For me, though, it's just showing up genuine. Like if I'm, I'll give you an example. This whole week, I have been on book promo. I feel so grateful. I get to do really cool things as just a part of what I do and how I serve. But, I've been tired, and I've been tired. My energy hasn't been like super high like it normally is. And so when I show up into a space, I'm not like, what would be authentic is like, I need a nap, I'm ready to sleep, oh my God, let me crawl up. But instead, genuine is just showing up with the energy that I've got. I think that authenticity, it's a word that I'm still learning what that even means.
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting that you make the distinction between those words, because I guess I hadn't thought about that.
Yeah.
But now it sort of makes sense.
Yeah, I think if I showed up authentically in some places, I would be like crying. Or like, super joyful too, right? There's all aspects of that. But I think for me, it's just if I can just show up genuine. And I think that's what people resonate with. Nobody wants to hear about my bad day. But nobody wants me to fake it either. And so I think being genuine gives me the grace to be like, hey, it's so good to see you. Like, I'm so happy to be here. Yeah, I might like, hey, I've got a little bit of a migraine. Please excuse me if I, but I want you to know that I'm so happy to be here. Because that's also genuine. If I were to show up in some places like authentically, honey, they'd be like, get out of here. But I think being genuine allows me to be honest without feeling like I have to mask, but without feeling like I have to kind of like unleash too, right? Yeah, because that's also not like, I don't know. I don't expect people to, when you're in the place of being of service, I acknowledge people want me to show up. They want me to read. They want me to be accurate. They want me to do well. And so I honor that.
So we've talked about sort of having that not so great day. One of the elements of Scott's story is that intrigues a lot of folks is that he had every reason to throw in the towel. Vietnam War veteran, heavy fighting, all of that kind of stuff. And many of his, friends and colleagues did. I'm wondering for you, the role that your difficult moments or your trauma or however you want to word it, those difficult moments influence the work that you do now, because without Scott's trauma, we wouldn't have this beautiful carousel. And so I'm wondering how the light and the dark in your life sort of weave together.
You have really fabulous questions.
Thank you.
And I appreciate them so much. The things, I talk a lot about my upbringing in the book, and I talk a lot about my own journey with loneliness and suffering. I don't think, at one point in my life, I couldn't see the value in it. At one point in my life, it was very much, why is this happening to me? What did I do to deserve this? You know, I was in that very much that, like, this sucks, which I think is okay.
Valid.
At that time, that was genuine. But what has been so great is the gift of, well, this helped open me up. And it helps me be super compassionate to people that I'm meeting or that I'm reading for, of, you know, just understanding where they are. You know, I may not understand the exact nuances of someone's situation, but I do understand grief, and I do understand loneliness and how that feels. And so it's made me continue to be more gentler and kind to people in the world. I'm not going to tell you that I liked all of it. That wouldn't be genuine.
You didn't enjoy your trauma?
No. But I also can find the treasure in it now that I've had some time from it, and that I've had some healing and some distance from it. I don't think that we deserve to go through what we go through sometimes as humans, but I do believe that we can find treasure in almost anything. And if we can't find it, then it's just not the time yet. We're not meant to know everything right now. It's kind of like, again, I'll reference Abraham Hicks. It would be kind of like, you know, you getting all of your meals for this lifetime in one sitting. You wouldn't want that, right? I don't want all of the knowledge of my life in one sitting. I'm okay not knowing everything about my life right now. I'm really excited because, you know, I just turned 39 this year. I'm in my final 30.
Congratulations.
And I feel so blessed to have the wisdom of being able to look back and seeing, like, oh my gosh, this is why this happened in my life, and here's the thing I took from it, and and I'm so excited to be looking back at 59 of the things I'm going through in my life now and how they help me be that person. And so I had this really cool experience in EMDR where I met my past self, I met my future self, and there was like me right in the middle. And it was just so beautiful to have that moment in that experience without psychedelics, without anything else. I've done those too. But, you know, to have that moment in full sobriety of seeing all of the parts of me kind of converge and see the importance in all of it.
So we've talked about music a little bit.
Yes.
Love music. Music is one of the ways that I receive messages from my answers.
Same here.
So, like, talk to me about that.
Do you do the the next song on my shuffle playlist is the message I need today?
Yes, 100%.
Yeah.
I want to do, like, playlist divination. Is that a thing?
It is a thing. You can divinate with anything.
Yeah.
It's just the intention and the energy, you know? Yeah. Listen, there is a song for me that has come up in my life. I don't think I've ever talked about this. There's a song for me that's come up in my life. There was my very first time that I actively remember feeling like, oh, there's something bigger than me out there. I was 16. I was working in a hair salon at the front desk, and I was talking with the hairstylist after we had closed up, and one of them starts talking about God, and I'm like still coming out. I'm going through this whole thing with my family. I don't know what I believe because I've been told that God hates me, you know, which I never believed to be true for myself, but, you know, it's what I was told. And I'd never really thought about, like, God like that. And we're sitting there talking. She's talking about God, how great God is. All of a sudden, the music in the salon cuts. And then, can't make this up, the song Have a Little Faith in Me starts playing.
Oh my gosh.
It was like my first memory that I have of, like, there being this, like, divine swooping intervention in a moment kind of thing. Even when I was a kid and I was having, like, experiences, like, I never, like, that memory sticks out. And so whenever I'm going through something or whenever like I just need like validation or confirmation, that song will start playing.
Oh my goodness. So it continues for you.
It does continue. Still, I just heard it the other day. I was like in the middle of I'm a Virgo. I'm always in my head. I was in the middle of like a store and then all of a sudden I just hear, have a little faith in me. And I was like, okay, cool. So yeah, I have that all the time.
Oh my gosh. So you've mentioned a couple of times you're a Virgo,
yes.
which I was kind of surprised by, but I hadn't met you personally.
It's the Sagittarius rising that gets people.
Okay. All right.
That Sagittarius rising that loves like performance and entertainment and is loud. That's like it gets people.
So what's your relationship? Because sometimes our heads get in our way, right? Or all the time?
All the time.
What is your relationship between your head and your heart? Between that sensory feeling?
Improving.
Okay.
Improving.
Okay.
My fourth house is in, which your fourth house is like your sense of like home and belonging, is in Pisces. And the Jupiter, which is like the planet that is like the planet of abundance, big things, sits in that house. So like me feeling at home in my body is so important for my growth as a human. And that's where I find peace. So I'm working on it. One of my very first mentors, who's actually here at the fair today, his name is Charles Cox. And the first time he mentored me, the first thing he said to me was like, you just have to get out of your own way. I had no idea what that meant.
The sort of slogan of the Carousel of Happiness is don't delay joy.
I love that.
We're big proponents of joy, awe, and wonder. How do those three things play in your life, either in your personal life, in your professional life? What is your relationship with joy?
I'm so damn joyful. I think that, so there was this thing that I heard from Brene Brown, and you know, if people are listening, not familiar with her work, Brene Brown studies vulnerability, shame and vulnerability. That has been what she has studied for the past, I think, like 20 years now. And a couple of years ago, she was sharing results of a survey that they did with trauma survivors. And in the survey, they were talking about what is the most difficult emotion for somebody who has experienced trauma. And I'm talking like big T trauma. Like I'm talking like abuse survivors, tragic things. What is the most difficult emotion for them to feel? And it was joy.
Interesting.
And I thought about that time in my life where there was a lot of anxiety, a lot of like things that I was like worried about. And I still have, I still experience anxiety. It's still, I'm human. But the fact that I was delaying feeling joyful just like hit me in the chest. And joy is important because, we spend so much time kind of worrying about what we said or what we did or what's coming down the pike or, keeping ourselves in this place of kind of fear from experiencing that. We keep ourselves from experiencing it because we're afraid that if we experience it, we're going to lose it. And so it's just easier to stay in suffering. But there's so much growth in joy and allowing yourself to feel safe feeling joy. There was a time in my life, this is about 2019, where I put a timer on my phone. Every 3 hours, I set a timer. I said, just take a moment to feel joy. And I got in the practice of just like feeling joy. And me as a Virgo, I need something very tactical and something like that I
need a system.
Yeah. And I think whatever we look for, we're going to find. So if you're looking for suffering and something to make you anxious, great, you'll find it, no problem. But if we take some time to find joy, and I find joy in so many things. It took me a while, though. It really took me a while, because for me, joy had to be like the next big win or the next big career move, and I just
capital J joy.
Yeah, capital J joy. But what's so funny? Now I just ask you, like, bring me something to feel joyful about. And it will. There was, we were talking about asking for things. It will. I asked the universe the other day. I was kind of having like a moment. I was caught up in my own drama of stuff. And I was like, give me something to feel joyful about. And I get a Ring camera notification on my phone. And it's the neighbor's kid. And on the camera, she is just running up to the ring to like hit the button. And she starts laughing. And she's laughing so hard. And it was so sweet. And I was like, that's amazing. And I think kids are such a great example of joy. I mean, I don't have kids. I am an uncle. I'm a gunkle. I got 2 sweet nephews. And I think kids are such a great example of joy because, man, they're just happy with like anything.
What do our departed want us to know? You've heard messages. Are there any themes that you've noticed as you've gone through?
Embrace life. Embrace life. We have this thing as humans that we do to kind of avoid or check out from our lives. And I did that for a long time. When I was like in the throes of addiction and, my own kind of stuff, I would avoid my life. But embrace it because it is finite. And the truth is, there's kind of a punchline in all of this. We go through all of this. We experience all this drama. We have all of this suffering, these things that happen in the world. And I'm not downplaying anything that's happening in the world right now or anything that's going on in someone's life because it is important. But, we get to this point one day where we leave this physical body and then it's a part of our journey as a soul, but it's like, it's not that serious at one point. And it's like, that's kind of like the punchline. We spend all this time worrying and panicking and then see you later.
Is there any question that you wish I would have asked you that I didn't ask you?
I feel complete with this conversation. This was really great. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Travis Holp, evidential medium, author, speaker, magical, sparkly human. Thank you so much for being on the Carousel of Happiness podcast. It was a pleasure.
Thanks so much to Travis and Ari Honeyford of Awkwardly Zen for their hospitality at this event. If you'd like to learn more about Travis or Awkwardly Zen, please check out the show notes for more information. In the meantime, take care. Be well. And as we like to say at the Carousel of Happiness, don't delay joy. And we'll see you next time around.
Beginnings and endings are only pretendings. I'll see you next time around.